Today, the 5th of October 2017, marks a historic day in the relations of Saudi Arabia and Russia. Today, King Salman of Saudi Arabia has traveled to Moscow on an official state visit, the first ever of a reigning king of Saudi Arabia, and it comes at a very important time of history in the Middle East. And I think that I speak for our organization and for those who are interested in the Middle East, that this is also an important relationship that needs to be established, needs to be stabilized, because Saudi Arabia, as one of the leading countries, not only in the Arab Gulf region, but in the wider Muslim world, as well as the entire of the Middle East, is looking to stabilize some of the areas that have been conflict prone around it. For example, in Yemen, in the country, for example, of Iraq, by extension, and an extension of the Middle East into Syria as well. It's very important that Saudi Arabia goes to Moscow, because Moscow in many ways has developed a policy which runs counter to Saudi Arabia's in the region. And so it looks like there's going to be several important dialogues to be established about bringing peace to Syria, about bringing peace to Iraq, about bringing peace to Yemen, and very importantly also about curtailing some of the region's most aspiring actors. I believe strongly that Saudi Arabia is also going to go to Moscow with a strong message about Iran and the role that Iran is playing in destabilizing the region, in the hope that Moscow is able to rein in Iran and to prevent it from basically violating the sovereign rights of the countries in the Gulf, including Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, because these areas and these countries rather have become almost a flashpoint because of Iranian ambitions in the region. And I think that the Saudi king is going to Moscow with a very clear message that Moscow has to do more to prevent the continued kind of military and terrorist activities of Iran in the wider Gulf region. Additionally, and I think it's also very crucial, that Saudi Arabia is going to shore up support for the policy of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, as well as Egypt and Libya in relation to Qatar. The Qatar crisis continues to go on, and I think that Moscow can play a very constructive role in ensuring that the demands of this quartet, of the quartet of Arab countries in relation to Qatar, that those demands are met. Russia is an increasingly important actor in the Middle East. Its interests cannot be ignored, and the King of Saudi Arabia's visit to Moscow is really sending a message that Saudi Arabia is open to dialoguing with Russia about what the new Middle East will look like when the wars are settled, but that Moscow has to do more in bringing in its own allies so that more bloodshed and conflict can be prevented, because the path, for example, that Iran is pursuing, but also the path of Qatar, are actually very divisive and very polarizing. And it's very important that Moscow knows that its position and its interests are being respected, but that it has a lot more to do in terms of consolidating its position, and it needs to work with the greater powers in the region, including in this situation, but also in all situations, Saudi Arabia. Because after all, Saudi Arabia, with 32 million people, a huge economy, is more than just a regional power. It's a trans-regional power. It's even a great power, I think, on a global level as well. And I think in this way, now that the energy crisis is coming to an end, and the fact that Saudi Arabia and Russia have reached I think a good level of reconciliation over the previous overproduction of oil, and now they've learned, let's say, each other's role in the wider energy markets and in the game of energy geopolitics. I think that now they can really establish a working partnership in bringing stability to the wider Middle East and to the Gulf in particular. And so we at the Eurogulf Information Center are going to keep following the story, and we're going to keep updating you in relation to its most important aspects. Thank you.